Are we live? Good evening. How you guys doing? Just waiting at the moment for to get pulled into this Zoom call. Nice to see all of you. Bad, Smoky Man. Yeah, I know. Smoky Man bad. The Warren debate lasted. Warren Smith did a debate, didn't he, on the topic of the Owens debate, interestingly enough. I'm going to have to check that out. I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. Trying to get all caught up on interviews and shit. Evening where they FRU. Well, yeah, good point. I guess afternoon. My bad. So happy I found you, Andrew. Well, happy that you found me too. Now send me a super chat. Right now. Happy you found me as well. Now send me all your money. This grift ain't gonna grift itself, okay? I have to mute this guy on stream. Crucible just dropped a new video. Yeah. Well, that was not fortuitous timing, was it? Not at all. Watching from Scotland? Oh, God. I just want to let you know that you're inferior to the Irish, who are inferior to the English. And I'm Irish and English, which is why only half of me has an inferiority complex. Thank you for the 20, by the way. Dragon Fist TV sends in 20. Thank you. Appreciate it. Didn't expect to stream this early. I've been getting up early lately. Got a lot to chat about. Where's the dono bars? Can you believe it? This isn't about grifting today. It's about something else. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still expect you to send me all of your money. And that I'm not talking about some of it. I think that you might get it twisted when I say all. I mean, you have to remove every dime from your bank account and send it to me. Duh. I don't know how you guys didn't know that already. Scottish man bad. Still waiting on that text. Oh, well, you can keep waiting. You like apples, bro? How you like them apples? Drip, 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 drip. Gotta drip it out. Some guy told me that you were a mushroom gobbler, but I will not reveal my source. That's fair. Rachel changed my position on women's suffrage. History, brainwashing is real. Can you believe what's going on with this chick who murdered her kids? And they sent her $1 million fucking dollars, bro. Sent her $1 million. Do you plan on debating any leftists on the DSA agenda? I don't have anything planned right now. Like I said, I've been doing nothing but debates, like nonstop since DebateCon, starting with DebateCon. So I'm taking a break from debates for a couple of weeks. Hello, hello. Uh-oh. I just want to let you know I'm live right now. Okay. Well, I'll see you in 8 minutes then. If you hear me back here talking, it's not me babbling to myself, I promise. Yep, I see it. All right, sounds good. Sorry, guys. I'm talking to one of the studio guys over there through the mic, and you can't hear him. So I have the audio off right now for that. Anyway, so I think it looks like we got about 8 minutes or so. The Candace Owens Damage Control Tour is priceless. The questioners has now taken full effect, which is fantastic. I'm very happy to see that that happened as a result of the debate. People are now questioning the questioners, very upset by this supposed sham investigation that's been going on. Massive multi-million dollar industry. And the whole thing's a sham. It's all built on feelings, bad inductive reasoning, zero logic. It's absolutely insane. The motivations behind these people, too, when you start to dive into what's actually motivating a lot of this, it has mostly to do with power and control, has very little to do with getting towards any sort of truth claim at all. Here's a super chat for the distinction between murder and aggravated murder, which I don't really know the difference, and who cares? My stepmother's obsessed, claiming the husband is suspicious, all based on her feelings. What can I even say to make her stop and think? I don't know, man. When you figure out how to get a woman to listen to reason, you tell me, and then I'll write a book on it, and I'll split the revenue with you, and we'll be billionaires. We'll call it the "How the hell do you get women to listen to reason" book, and then we'll, once we figure this out, we'll write a book. I'll do everything. I'll fund it, and then I'll split the revenue with you. So if any of you actually have a way to make women listen to reason and logic, then I definitely want to hear it. Andrew, we're not real. You're talking to yourself. My money is fake. Well, maybe I'm a brain in a vat. Did you ever think about that? Also, Breaking Friday, Andrew's book list. Here's a teaser. Book 1, Occult Feminism by Rachel Wilson. Book 2, The Bible. That's funny. If there is one thing that you can say to Valhalla FT, what would it be? Also, will you debate him? Sure, I'd debate the guy. I'm curious. I would debate him. I think that would be rather amusing. Yeah. So yes, the answer is yes, I would. That would be rather amusing. You want to prove, Andrew, that you're a gunsmith or master gunsmith? Yeah, here's all the proof. Oh. Well, you want to prove, Andrew, that you did blah, blah, blah? Yeah, here's all the proof. Oh. So you're saying I'm fucking stupid, Andrew? Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that you're really stupid. And once again, didn't do any due diligence. These people never do any due diligence and just pretend. You know what I want to see from that guy? I want to actually see what he sent in to check my supposed records. That's what I want to see. I don't believe that he even verified any of the information. I don't even believe the guy. Anyway, Sacrament Show says power potion, appreciate it. But hey, my wife is totally opposed to the notion that Patrick is guilty. These women really piss her off. I don't blame them. I don't blame her. There being a betting market for the TR conviction is disgusting. It's even more disgusting that some people point to that for your loss. What do you mean? It was up to like 70% 3 days ago. What are you talking about? Obviously, a lot of this stuff is manipulated by trolls, but like you can't really change market forces over. People are like, we're not actually going to lose real money on this insane meme bet. Did you see Polymarket numbers for before and after? 36% chance Tyler did it before. It went up to 70% after. Yeah, I know. I'm aware. Did you watch Ben Shapiro's reaction to the debate? And what did you think about it? I don't care about... like, a guy like Ben Shapiro is never going to like a guy like me. Let's be real. These guys have certain media personas. and the persona is always like, I'm squeaky clean and super, super nice, and I talk like this, and I'm very nice, and da da da. And this is very professional, and that's not me. I'm the same exact way on air that I am off air. I know it's a joke, but I wouldn't doubt it if God told Candace that it was Tyler Robinson. She would investigate God. He's in on it too. Dartho Mass says, if you want to put some laughter in our bellies, kickstart this stream and let's watch the We're So Close compilation put together by Milk Bar TV. 342 days of Candace telling her audience, we're getting close. Yeah. They're getting close to what? Not getting close to nothing. VFT has already been wrong making accusations about other special forces guys, and his dad's a lawyer. They probably got him to look Andrew up. It seems to be the running theory on how he gets legal info. Well, he got his info wrong, that's for sure. I apologize, Andrew, but I proved on Rob's stream yesterday you are Mossad. My sources, brothers, kids, teachers, chiropractor told me. Fair enough. I don't even know why that guy hates me so much. I never did anything to him. I just don't believe their bullshit, made up, non-inductive theories. It's but again, this is 90% of this is about power and control. So yeah, of course, I'm not going to say anything on TV. Yeah, I just babble swear words to my own audience. That's be careful. Valhalla has a master's degree in business administration. Boy, should watch some of those claims though, because many of them are just so easily. Well, all of them are easily falsified. So it's just really stupid. Surprised they even decided to make any claims about it at all. Would you consider quitting smoking and taking up aggravated smoking instead? Oh yeah, good point. Sorry, guys, we're going live now. In 5, 4, 3. That was a good tune. Good tune. It is. It is. If I put it up on screen, though, it'll show the like block that tells you how much time there is until a commercial break. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay.
For this, because that starts with part one.
I'm a little upset we didn't get paid for having this interview, but that's fine. We have to take it in stride. So Andrew, why don't we just start there? Why don't you establish
the 7,000's in the mail?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, according to Candace, I have a much higher price tag than that. So let's start here. What is your relationship with Turning Point?
I went down and did some help with a debate course. That's the entirety of the relationship as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, and that was the one time I've met you. You were on campus. You were teaching some debaters. I thought you were very nice. Much to my surprise, based on your public persona at times. I'm kidding. I actually really appreciate the way that you kind of handle your business. But I haven't known you. It's not like a thing that we know Andrew Wilson really well. Like, as far as I know, you said some things that weren't exactly super positive and nice about us. But you have been on a dogged
in my
pursuit.
defense, I was mostly mean to Blake. Okay, in my defense, I was mostly mean to Blake.
Same here.
Not as mean. Yeah. So I mean, if I can make a defense for myself, but anyway, go ahead.
Oh well, hopefully we could. Blake sitting here going,
I don't even know what he's referring to, but whatever.
Yeah. What did you say about Blake?
I don't remember. I was doing. I know what it was. It was doing a review.
This is water under the bridge.
Yeah, I was doing a review. This was a while ago after Charlie had passed away, and during the review, I said one of the problems I think with the show is that these guys are just too nice. Like, they're really nice guys, right? I actually was pointing this out.
Well, that's
and then I'm the nice one.
Yeah, I thought
he's flipped his.
There's
rep.
a misread. There's a misread on this one.
Your street rep there.
Well, I thought that it was going to get pretty brutal because the left was out in force and they were weaponizing everything that they possibly could against the legacy of Charlie Kirk. He had become a martyr overnight to the entirety of the right, and he was everybody's martyr. It didn't matter, seemingly, if you were a person who hated him or didn't hate him. Suddenly he hit martyrdom status. And so I think one of the critiques I was doing a video on, and it wasn't particularly bad, by the way, and I've always said that I thought TPUSA was more of a force for good than it was for bad. But one of the criticisms was, I don't know if these guys know what's coming for them. Like, I don't know if they know what's going to be coming their way, because I knew that the left was mobilizing. I knew it.
So let's get into that in a bit, but I want to start with the debate because this is the way, again, it's structured. I have so many questions for you about how you conducted the debate. I saw that you gave yourself a score of like 7 out of 10. I'm genuinely curious, and you gave her a score of 3 out of 10 or 7.5. I forget what it was exactly.
If I could take the lead on this, just what were your immediate feelings getting in that room, engaging with her directly in person like that for, I believe, the first time?
Same. I was going to ask him the
Well,
same
I'm going to be
question,
really just kind of upfront. Yeah, hang on. I'm sorry, 1 second. Producer's telling me I need to do something here from my end. I think it's right. I think it's right here. Whoops. It's the Zoom. I'm sorry, guys. 1 second.
What do you think he's going to say, Andrew?
I have no idea.
I think that there is a way to do that. To make it, but I don't know. It's fine, dude. Who cares? Like, we're in the middle of it.
It's a simulcast.
Yeah, we're in the middle of it. They can go over there if they don't like it. So anyway, back to this. Yeah, so I'm just going to be really blunt with you guys. I thought that she was actually quite stupid. I was shocked. I was actually quite stunned. I didn't think that she was a very smart person at all. I had good reason to believe that going in, but I didn't think that she was a particularly good interlocutor. She never made any points at all. She would just kind of ramble. It was just kind of incoherent babble and ramble, and anytime I would get to the point or make her address an actual point, she would go back to rambling incoherently. She didn't understand what inductive reasoning was. I even spelled it out in a very, very simplistic way. Inductive reasoning would be like if, then, and, or. So if I'm 20 minutes away from my job, and I'm supposed to be there in 5 minutes, then I can assume I'm going to be late, right? That would be an inductively reasoned out position. When I explained that to her and then asked her to give me her induction for how we get to Israel, TPUSA, France, and all these other people who are involved in the conspiracy to murder Kirk, she actually didn't even understand what I was asking her. And so, from my perspective, it was that was the toughest part of the debate, was that she actually didn't even understand half of what I was saying.
Explain that, actually, because you do a ton of these debates, and is it sort of like one of those things? I have a good friend who's a professional tennis player. he said it's really hard to play against bad tennis players because you can't actually serve and volley like you've been training for years to do. You actually it gets easier if the quality of the opponent
You're
is better.
anticipating
Yes.
where a pro would hit it back,
Yeah.
and they just hit it some other spot.
Yeah, exactly. Is it kind of like that where the person across from you is not even keeping up with the basic blocking and tackling of a debate? It's almost more challenging for you in that way?
Well, here I'll demonstrate it for you. So, you just asked me a pointed question. What your pointed question is, hey Andrew, if somebody doesn't know what they're doing on the other side of this thing, does it actually make it more difficult to do this thing, right? Now I could just say, well, yes, of course, and then we would move on with the conversation. But if I was going to be Candace Owens, I would say, well, what we're talking about here is how I feel and about how I feel about the various things that I'm talking about when it comes to debate. And you say that I'm not a very skilled interlocutor, but we have evidence of me being a skilled interlocutor. You can look back at all the times that I've done interlocuting with other people, and I think that we can all see what's going on here. So you see,
Yeah,
like you see
fair
how
enough.
that's completely unhelpful to
So
moving a conversation on, or getting to the point of a conversation, because it's just incoherent rambling. And so what my whole job there was, and I knew that that was what it was going to end up being, was to make sure that I could get her to, with her words, make those claims. And then I knew she would. And the reason I knew this is we'd had a like pre-debate summit, I guess you could say, with Patrick Bet-David, where I talked with her briefly, and she was a prattle machine. Like, I would just be very pointed and say, well, actually, this is probably the better idea because A, B, C, and D. Very quick, 30 seconds. And she would prattle for like 3 minutes straight about just nonsense. And so I knew going in that that was likely what it was going to be. And so my job somewhat shifted in that debate from the idea that I could just kind of inquire towards those positions and get good faith answers to, I was going to have to let her prattle and then point out the inconsistencies and that's exactly what I did.
yeah, and I've heard you describe it as sort of Operation Let Her Speak kind of thing, because I guess your strategy was that she was going to sort of concede debate points all on her own, and you didn't necessarily have to do too much work to make that happen.
She walked back every single claim she made and had no evidence whatsoever for any of the things she was saying. Now, I knew that she wouldn't, because I had been looking through kind of the body and catalog of the alternative evidence, and you know what I found out? There isn't any. So if you're a very skilled debater, the first thing that you do always is you move to falsify your position first. You always move to falsify your position. So the idea there is, if I'm going to defend a thing that I believe, the thing that makes me so good at defending it is because I know it's true, because I've tried to falsify it and I can't. These people never did that. They never attempted to falsify any of their own positions,
Right. No,
or
that makes
falsify any of their own evidence. And so the holes in it are just miles wide and make absolutely no sense. And so the inferences don't make any sense. They get blocked immediately. You say, well, I think that that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. You go, okay, well, why? Well, because we have a text message where he said that I may leave the pro-Israel cause. Okay, I understand that. But how does that actually lead towards Israel killing Charlie Kirk? Answer, nothing. There's no answer, right? It just leads nowhere. These are all, so they're never attempting to falsify the claims, right? That should lead to the next claim, to the next claim, to the next claim, until we get to the claim of, no, Israel killed Charlie Kirk or France killed Charlie Kirk. And we never get to any of that. It just stops immediately.
Well, it stopped at feels and opinion, and you can't tell me how to think and all this stuff. Which, like, you said, I'm not telling you how to think. Yeah, it was interesting. So I predicted that this debate, that you were going to win it because the truth is on your side, right? And as somebody who's lived this firsthand, I know all the garbage when they continually drone on about this stuff, and how many lies are continually laced in and just repeated ad nauseum, so that the internet begins to believe them. So I knew that, but I knew also that she has a bigger following, bigger followers on YouTube, whatever. So I knew that immediately there was going to be this rush to say who won, who won. But I predicted this. I said, this will age really well, because what I was watching is that she conceded the whole debate very early on, multiple times at every different point and juncture. She kept conceding the point, walking things back. and that as the commentariat kind of comes in that has, an IQ above room temperature, and pointed that out for people, that it was going to then be this kind of finishing effect after the debate. Is that what you have seen?
Oh, 100%. So essentially what happened here was really interesting. The Baron Colemans of the world and the sort of LawTube picked all of this up and just started tearing her position to pieces immediately. And the commentators in the debate sphere they're making a mockery of her. They think that she's a lunatic, has no idea what she's talking about. And then on the flip side to that, too, you even have Main Street coverage. And even on the Main Street coverage, it's the same thing. They're like, well, where's any of the evidence for any of these supposed claims? And we never got to any. So not only will it age well, but what I thought that it would do more than anything else, to be as candid as possible, I thought that it would up the pressure of people questioning the questioners. And I've seen a lot of that now moving on social media, of people saying, hey, wait a second, where is the actual evidence? I got hundreds of DMs, for instance, from people who didn't know that the steakhouse receipt was a complete phony fraud, that the whole thing is a fraud. They had no idea.
Well, can I
that
just
that
say
was the
something?
case.
Can I just
Sure.
say something? So we have Andrea Burkhart. She's going to join us on the show tomorrow. She is apolitical as it comes. Like, she is not like on a side at all. And I asked her, I said, if they had exculpatory evidence, whether it's the parents that actually, think he's innocent, or they have some steakhouse receipt, would they not present that at the preliminary hearing? And she was like, absolutely they would.
No duh.
No lawyer, if they have exculpatory evidence that proves the timeline's wrong, that proves the parents don't actually think it, would not use that evidence, because those lawyers are then basically binding their client over for 3 years in prison for something that he didn't actually do. They absolutely would have presented that evidence at preliminary hearing. Okay,
It was the same thing
And this
my
is coming from
attorney
a very apolitical person.
Yeah, same thing my attorney friend told me, who was one of the fact checkers at the debate that I brought with me. He said the same exact thing. He said if there was real evidence of conspiracy like that, that would falsify anything that the prosecution had, and that is a thing that you would bring up.
Absolutely,
because it would completely crush the opposition.
Yeah, and they have the Cellbrite data from the phone. They have they know exactly where he actually was based on digital evidence, the whole timeline. Anyways, I want to get to this because the claim was that Tyler Robinson is a patsy, and your claim was that the evidence actually supports that Tyler Robinson's guilty.
Yeah,
okay?
the claims are actually comparative. So they were comparative claims. Is there more? Is there more evidence that Tyler Robinson murdered Charlie Kirk than there is evidence for him being a patsy? So these are comparative claims. So the idea here is, in the comparative claim, which one actually has more evidence for it? Now, you can say that you don't particularly care for the evidence of the state, or that there's problems with it. And that's a fair enough argument. But as a comparative claim, there is nothing to compare. One side has evidence, the other side has no evidence. It's really that simple. It's not very complex.
Well, and here's from Milk Bar TV. He puts together these compilations on, kind of a lot of things, but he tends to focus on Candace and kind of the contradictions that she makes often. She's kind of a contradiction queen here. So let's go ahead and play the Patsy claim, SOT 2.
Candace's belief that there's overwhelming evidence that Tyler Robinson was a patsy and didn't kill Charlie Kirk. Why is it that we should go with this idea that it was a patsy?
I'm not saying that we should go with the idea that it was a patsy. I am saying that there is.
I thought that was the whole your whole claim.
No, Tyler Robinson. They're going to convict him. Right? They found their patsy. They're going to make it work.
The alleged shooter. You think they're a patsy?
Of course, they're a patsy. A patsy, which is what Tyler Robinson is. Which is what Tyler Robinson is.
So I didn't edit that together, so I didn't do the slow mo. I wasn't trying to take a cheap shot, but that's how the Milk Bar TV did it. So basically, she contradicted her original claim that you guys went into the debate almost immediately. Am I missing something?
She contradicted her claim very early on. So I played this clip. You can actually find it during the debate at right about the 51-minute mark. And what she says there is a comparative claim. There's 100 other just as likely explanations as Robinson is a patsy. her answer in response to that is, yes, there is. And then she further qualifies it by saying that not only is that the case, but if you keep moving ahead in the timeline on that particular clip, she concedes the entirety of it, which is what he's showing there for the patsy. She says there's no good reason that you should actually believe he's a patsy. So you have two comparative claims that you can make right there. But that just completely annihilated her position, and I knew right then and there that I'd won the debate. And you can actually, if you pan, they didn't do it because she was speaking, but if they were able to pan over, you actually would have seen what I call the Wilson smug look. It looks something like this, where I'm kind of just get a little bit smug because I know for sure that's it, right? Once I get that concession.
You had a game set match right there. Yeah,
Yep.
you know what's interesting, by the way, one of the more, I will just say on a personal level, infuriating moments of the debate was when you guys were talking about complicit. She said, I never said Erica Kirk was complicit.
Yeah.
You put those words in Charlie's murder. You put those words in my mouth. I didn't do that. And
Did you consider asking her to define the word complicit?
I did actually.
Yeah.
You know, if you watch what I said to her specifically was, what did you mean when you said complicit then? What does that actually mean? And what she said is, that means that you believe Tyler Robinson shot Charlie Kirk. And I said, wait, that's it? All you mean by complicit is that Erica believes that? Yes. And then I went a step further again and said, so are you just saying that she doesn't believe that? And then Candace says, yeah, I absolutely don't believe Erica Kirk believes that. I just couldn't believe it.
So I'm going to play
It's
the
like,
clip.
it's wild.
We'll play the clip. This is again from Milk Bar, SOT 3.
There is why it is impossible for me to think that Erica Kirk is not complicit somehow.
That Tyler Robinson was 100% responsible for the death of Charlie Kirk. Let's just say she believed it with every fiber of her being, believed all the evidence, because she did. She just actually did. Would it then follow that somehow she's complicit in his death?
I didn't say complicit in death. You added those two words.
By the way, I just want to say, I don't know Milk Bar TV. The team just pulled these clips. We don't pay him because that'll, I don't know what the allegations are going to be. But so I'm sitting there going like, wait, your whole thing is that you've basically set it up that Erica Kirk is complicit in Charlie's death somehow for months. And you're going to sit there in a debate across from Andrew Wilson and say, you added those words. I never said that. I meant she's complicit in like the framing of Tyler Robinson or something like that. And I was like, I'm sitting here going like, well, thanks for all the death threats because you just think we believe the wrong guy's guilty. Like, thanks for all of the harassment and all the death threats.
Yeah,
Really cool.
Well, not only that, but the massive slander campaign, the unethical campaign that has been going on. So there's two kind of primary reasons that I even got involved in any of this to begin with. The first was because of a person who has been in my chat for years challenged me because he said, I don't really believe this official narrative. And you always tell us to try to falsify your own claim. So that was what I set out to do. I'm going to see if I can falsify my own claim. And I couldn't falsify it. Right. And I tried. I went into X space after X space, talked to tons of these people with their alternative theories, talked to attorneys, talked to everybody, and I couldn't get it falsified. So that was the first issue. And then the sort of second issue is that what I see is a power dynamic problem. I think that people get the motivation of Owens and a lot of these people incorrect. They attribute it to things like jealousy. They attribute it to this type of thing. I don't really think it has much to do with that. I think it has to do with power. From the perspective of the Owens and Owens orbiters, they have license to do whatever horrible thing that they want to anybody because they're running, quote, an investigation. That's what they're doing. So at least from their end, that's what they say they're doing. So if they want to dox you, if they want to harass you, if they want to harass your family, they want to dox your family, they want to do all of the things which are normally against all internet protocol, right? The things that people would normally come down hard on you for doing. They're allowed to because they're, quote, investigators. And so what that does is it gives them carte blanche to do whatever horrible thing they want to somebody because they're searching for the truth, you see. And that's one of the major issues that I saw going in was like, these people have given themselves license to do whatever horrible thing they want to anybody that they want. And then the way that they justify it is, well, they're part of this conspiracy. So therefore, if we destroy their life, if we dox their family members, if we viciously attack them, if we slander them, if we demean them, if we stalk them, if we do horrible things to them, that's completely justified, because all we need to do, the wine moms of the world, is unify and say, well, you're part of the conspiracy, so we're justified in doing this to you.
I'm reminded of the one time I did meet you when you came to HQ, and I asked you about, I was like, why, I'd seen a debate you did with, I think it was Zach Costello,
Yeah.
somebody I'd never heard about before. And I asked you, I was like, why did you do this? And you said, like, I expect us to fight for ourselves, but, I didn't necessarily expect somebody like you, who, again, we didn't know each other. You had criticisms, fair enough, whatever. I didn't expect somebody like you to kind of get into the midst here. And your answer was actually pretty good. You said, I feel like they're in league with the left. And this is something that I've heard
They're
from you.
in league with the devil, maybe.
Well, you've been really
Wait,
on
you just
that.
said the same thing.
Oh,
That's the same
see,
thing, right? Same thing.
And I just wanted to ask, because I mean, we don't pay you. We're not working together. We didn't coordinate this debate with you. All of that is just like her nonsense that she wants to put out there. But when I did meet you the one time when you came to campus to teach debate course and stuff like that, you told me that was a deep motivator for you, that you think they're in league with the left. Explain that.
I had noticed for a long time that there was correspondence, very public correspondence, going on with the former stalkers of Charlie Kirk. And you might remember the former stalkers of Charlie Kirk. They called themselves the Un-F America Tour. And they're headed by a socialist, and this particular socialist has received tons of money through basically being processed through Act Blue. We knew all of this when we checked her out, because she has been behind many harassment campaigns towards right-wingers, doxing campaigns, and various things like this. And she seems to be very proud of it. In fact, she says, she just said recently to Max, a kid that I know who is going towards the Pick Up the Mic tour, can't wait to find out what skeletons you have in your closet, right? So her whole thing is to do this. And I noticed that she was corresponding with other accounts like Project Constitution and other of these orbiters who also correspond with Baron Coleman, who corresponds with Candace Owens, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought that was a very odd linkage, and suspected that there might be some kind of coordination going on there. So I'd never directly accused Candace of coordinating with these people or Baron Coleman, but I did say that I thought Project Constitution was definitely coordinating with them. And then it turns out post-debate, they're all retweeting each other, including the Un-F America tour. They're directly corresponding with each other. And that basically confirmed all the suspicions. And I've always thought that leftists have pushed this narrative. And Z has now basically come out and admitted that she has been pushing this narrative as hard as possible. And so did Hassan Piker. He's pushing the narrative as hard as possible, because instead of the right wing unifying and throwing these people in jail for being, terrorists, which is exactly what should have happened, as the federal government had declared Antifa to be a terrorist, the right wing had all the momentum. And then what happens? These leftists began to also spread and propagate these theories, which divided the right. Hassan Piker actually put it very succinctly when he pointed this out.
Yeah, that Hassan Piker clip is pretty infuriating. I have a couple more questions for you on the debate here. I noticed you didn't bring up Egyptian planes. You didn't bring up Fort Huachuca, or as I like to call it, some fort in Tucson, because I didn't actually know. I'd never heard of it before. Fort Huachuca. You didn't bring up any of these kind of harebrained, debunked claims, right? You got this Mitch Snow character who says his dad is a Zodiac killer, that claims he saw people at Fort Huachuca. I mean, this stuff is so Looney Tunes, but you didn't go there. Why?
I wanted to go after the strongest claims. So if I was in Candace's seat when I'm kind of gaming this out, which way she would go, if I bring up Mitch Snow, she'd say, yeah, I brought him on. I never said that he was credible. right? I'm investigating every lead. You can't hold me responsible for his position. And that wastes a lot of my time. Remember, I'm only going to get about 3.5 hours here, and I only get an hour and a half. So what I wanted to do was go after the much stronger claims that she can't just point at and say, "Oh, I was just messing around," or "I was just following up on leads," but claims that she has really tied herself to, like the Patsy claim, the Steakhouse claim, the French Foreign Legion claim. These are things that I think are much, much stronger to give opposition to, because when she can't actually demonstrate any of this, it makes her look terrible. As opposed to like Mitch Snow, if we were doing Mitch Snow, she would just say, "Well, he's just a guy I had on the show, and I didn't tell anybody they had to believe him."
Yeah, but the Egyptian planes thing, Andrew, she for months was saying this is like this is the thing that is going to crack everything open, and then I think it was Kane Koa the Great did a big deep dive, tracked the planes, realized it was like 70% wrong. Even like I think it was 2/3 of the time the plane was on a different continent than they had it.
I mean, it was trivial because you look at it and it had one. We should point this out that there are multiple times in the spreadsheet where she just repeats the same plane. So that's not a lot of attention to detail, but a lot of it is like all these times where Erica and these Egyptian planes, they're both flying through Wilmington, Delaware at the same time. And I don't think Erica has literally ever visited Wilmington, Delaware in her life.
Yeah. So, I mean, so anyway, I just think that there's so much has transpired, and so many different stories and so many different threads that we forget, and that the average person forgets, and oh, she's just asking questions. She's just on a, but when we actually, I was actually Blake, I was off that day, sort of invited her to have a debate with us. She ended up pulling something like this French Foreign Legion thing, where she thought there was some cartel guy here in Arizona that was going to try and assassinate her. And so we couldn't do it in Arizona, actually. That was like, I don't know if people know that story or not. I can't remember what's public and what's not. There were
multiple layers that, she was paranoid. Oh, there could be assassination threat when I'm approaching the HQ, and then there's like a cartel danger, and then there was a new danger that came after that. Like endless excuses. And we saw this where she was insisting you had to go to her place.
Yeah. And that's my other question, Andrew. So there's been much made about this the earpiece, and you did question at some point if there was information being fed both ways. I think we have a clip on that, actually, if I'm not mistaken. So this is PBD talking about this. SOP 5.
General Hall.
What's in that? What is that? What is that?
That's an earpiece.
Was that legal?
It's not like I'm out there saying big lie.
You see how he's touching his earpiece?
Yeah.
Was he wearing an earpiece?
100%.
He was. Wait a minute.
100%.
What do you mean he was wearing an earpiece?
Are you ready?
Okay, go.
That's Candace's earpiece.
What does that mean?
They gave that earpiece to all of us.
So they had it too.
No, but wait a minute. Watch what just happened.
Yeah.
The market believes she had an earpiece of things being fed to us. That was an earpiece that Candace's producers gave Candace, gave him.
They hear everything you guys
me.
behind the scenes.
So
Is she going to say that on air?
She would easily. I don't think she would have a problem.
Yeah.
I think she will. I don't think she has a problem with that. But that is their earpiece.
So what's the story with the earpiece? Because I asked my tech team, I said, could you, if I had you in studio with me, could I route it in such a way that I feed different sources to different people? We don't have it routed that way, but you could. And they said yes.
Of course you can.
Yeah, you can.
The thing is, though, is like, I can't make that claim because I don't know if it's true or not true. It wouldn't surprise me if it was true. I didn't like the idea of having the earpieces in. What we were told was you have to have them in so that you know the cue for we're going to bring up this evidence, or we're going to do this, or we're going to go to an ad break. That's why you need to have it in. But it wouldn't surprise me if she was being fed through her earpiece at all. So, but I can't say that for certainty.
All right, Blake. Andrew has questions for us too.
Of course.
Just so the audience knows, we are going to stream. If this takes longer to get through the whole interview back and forth, like we'll just go longer.
We're going long. We're going live.
Yeah, we're live. I've asked a bunch of questions. I want to make sure you have a chance to ask any questions that you have about the debate.
I guess I've speculated, and like this might be the only time she ever agrees to any debate like this.
Well, it's unprecedented. just so you know.
Yeah.
Like, nothing like this has ever happened on the internet before, as far as I'm aware. The entire thing was unprecedented. The fact that I had to pay for access just to ask basic questions in a way that she couldn't evade,
By
that's
the way,
probably never going to happen again.
can we just pause there for a second? The one of the parts of this that is I haven't heard nearly enough people bring up again is the fact that you offered her $300,000 to do the debate, and she counters
She
you
tries to debate. Oh, 500.
500,000, and then when you guys do the debate, she's running ads. I couldn't. Okay,
Well,
I saw
if you,
that was
if
all
you
set up
saw
to just
the
say.
contract correspondence, like, these people were just insane to deal with. But my thought process was like, who cares? Just make whatever concessions they want and get in the room, because I know once I'm in the room, I'm going to be able to expose that there's no evidence for any of these claims at all, and there never has been. So that was my whole thought process, was like, whatever, just concede to whatever crazy stuff that they want so that we can get there.
yeah. Well, I have another.
Do you feel there was any unfinished business to the debate? Is there anything you really wish you'd gotten to, or is there anything, if you had a round two, without spoiling what your strategy would be should that round two happen, that you feel it merits more exploration?
Yeah, I think
You rate yourself 7. Are there regrets?
my biggest critique is that I think it would have actually been better if we had done timed rounds so I could hold her feet to the fire better. Because she would just filibuster, right? If you look at the debate time, she got twice the speaking time that I did. And you can't be particularly aggressive. It's in her house with, she's pregnant. It would have been terrible optics if I had been as aggressive as I have been in the past in different debates. I had to take a different strategy here. Ultimately, though, yeah, I think that she needed to be hammered even more on a lot of these questions until she actually gave even more concise answers and reconciled some of the contradictions. But that just wasn't possible in that format. But I think ultimately we got exactly what it was that I set out to do, which is we got the answer, right? That there's no evidence. That's what everybody in the world got. They got the answer. There's no evidence of any kind for these claims.
Well, and I think that's why this is going to age really, really well for you, Andrew, because I knew that she had the bigger following. It was going to be like, Candace won.
Of course,
all that stuff.
We knew we were going to get
but
zerged, and if it wasn't the clip that they picked, it would have been a different clip. It doesn't matter. We knew that the zerg was going to happen. Anytime I've debated with much larger creators or media talent, the zerg happens. There's not much that you can do about it. But they only get about 48 or 72 hours. And then when other people start picking it up and picking it apart, they go, whoa, wait a second. There's serious problems here.
Yeah. Well, and so were you concerned she was just going to get up and walk out if you pressed her too hard or if you got too aggressive?
In fact, she wanted to make it very clear in the contract that once we're seated in the studio, essentially her contractual obligation is fulfilled. And so that was, she was trying to make that, part of the agreement of the initial contract. And that was, in fact, I'm sure, in case she did decide that she was getting pressed too hard and then rage quit and then said, but that now I can keep all of the money, right? Because we fulfilled our contractual end.
Did you put the money in like an escrow account or something? Like, where did the money go? I'm sure you had some stipulation of what it would take to release it, right?
Well, my attorney said, send it to his attorney, because if they don't fulfill their end of the contract and he releases it, they get disbarred. So, send it to him and direct to his escrow. It's their attorney, right? Like, if their attorney won't release it to them, then they got a problem. You know what I mean? So that's how I set it up, was we'll send $300,000 to your attorney.
I mean, I'm reminded of something that Charlie told us, something Blake and I have reflected on. He said, if you want to understand Candace, just know that all she cares about is money.
Which I think he's actually was mistaken about. I think we've seen that
it's
money,
power, it's influence.
I don't even know if it's power. I think it's money, attention. She loves attention.
Yeah, we could speculate more, but the money
it's
thing
just about
blew
being
me
able
away.
to destroy a person's life and then saying that you're justified in doing it because you're running a quote investigation. The fact of the matter is that these people have run for essentially a year a massive campaign of slander, doxing, harassment, every sort of horror that you can imagine conducted on other people. And if you even dare disagree with them in a public sense, they move to report your channel. I can show you hundreds of these various messages saying, go to Andrew's YouTube, right? He promised people who were members he was going to release information and didn't. That's a violation of TOS. Go report him when they knew it wasn't true, right? And tons and tons of these people focus on deplatforming, doxing operations, and then justify it through, quote, we're running an investigation. And the internet usually frowns on that in a big way. But because they claim that it's an open source investigation, they've thus far been able to get away with some of that. But I'm hoping that we're going to start putting a stop to it.
Well, and they all got their own group chats, and that I noticed, I can see it on my, like on X, if I make a post and you can see it raises their, it catches their attention. They all brigade it and they try and get a community note put on it. You see this kind of coordinated efforts a lot, actually. And they made a big deal about this group of 92. Let me say for the you know, the internet's record here, I didn't even know this group chat existed. Nobody was paid, nobody was coordinated. These are people doing it organically to defend against what they see as a smear campaign, a character assassination against Erica, against Turning Point, against Charlie's Legacy. We don't have to pay people to do this. There are still good people out there that see it and see it for what it is. And the hypocrisy is crazy because they're doing this themselves, and we can see it in the way that they brigade the comments and they attack your channel.
There isn't any justification at all for you to just say this group of people disagrees with me, so all bets are off. If we just imagine having the power to just make the claim, well, this person could potentially be in on it. And just by saying that, you now have given carte blanche power to people to run massive doxing and harassment campaigns, look for private data, look for private medical records, private emails, private papers and effects, private conversations, various things like this. They now believe that they have carte blanche to all of that on private individuals by just giving the nod. Oh, they might have been in on it. Wink, wink. That, by the way, gentlemen, is extraordinary power for one single person on the internet to have. It's extraordinary power to be able to just mark an entire mob, to go and destroy a person's entire life by just saying they could be a part of this thing.
I mean,
and I think that a lot of people missed that part, that they've been able to justify this by claiming it's an open source investigation. You'll hear Stu Peters say this. You'll hear these guys say this all the time. And what that does is it justifies the horrific behavior.
I mean, we've seen this. We know people around here. It's like they just circle around. They're predatory. You mentioned how they like the idea that when you claim you're an investigator, it lets you do anything to people. But I think a deeper psychological thing is it is addictive to people to be wantonly cruel to someone. And then if you can tell the person who's doing that, actually, this is morally righteous. That's an incredibly addictive thing. It's what drives the French Revolution, these Maoist struggle sessions. Like every great frenzy in history has had itself driven by this sort of behavior and egging on this cruelty.
Are you saying that this is a leftist movement?
I'm thinking it is. I think it is. I've called her followers Cantifa for that reason.
It is.
Like
actually,
Antifa does.
Blake makes a very astute point here, that if you look at color revolutions of the past where they say it's us versus them, you'll see a lot of this in the posting as well. It's about the elites. It's about the oligarchs. It's about the dividers at the top trying to keep us down, right? These are all, it's all very, very communist and, by the way, feminist coded. If you want to know the truth, very feminist coded language. The idea of, well, we're just being divided not because of worldviews, but because the, quote, rich, powerful elite want us to be divided. No, we actually, normal people have completely different worldviews from each other. They're going to be divided on political issues across the board. That is the state of affairs, has nothing even to do with the elite. While I'm sure that there's some people who exacerbate certain problems in order to get divisionary responses or rage bait or what have you, people have very different worldviews. But it's very, very feminist coded language, very communist coded language. I do actually agree with that because I see it over and over and over again. And you'll hear this in that particular movement all the time. There's no right-left paradigm. The right-left dialectic is false. The right-left paradigm is false. It's like, no, it's not. It's not false. I don't know how you think that I'm going to just like suddenly unite with 90 million abortionists. How do you think that works? Like, I'm just going to go, oh, okay, well, you're right. The elites are keeping us down. I'm going to go over there and unite with 90 million abortionists who want abortion legal and want to continue to murder children, for the next, however long the rest of my existence, right? No, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to do that, actually.
Yeah, well, and which is why your observation that they're partnering with some of these Act Blue groups, I think, is really apt and was a keen insight that you injected into the discourse, because it is feminist coded, it is left coded, and it's horrible. And I just want people watching to understand that we've had like low level staff had to have cops parked out in front of their homes because they got doxxed
and
they got
I
harassed.
mentioned you were mentioning that power to just sick a giant mob on people. That I was talking to a member of our staff who was featured in one of our recent episodes, and he had not seen the episode and didn't know what it said, and he just goes like, Blake, was I the topic today? Because I can tell, because I get the unsolicited Facebook messages, I get the unsolicited
threats,
the text messages start to come
ominous.
in, like it all floods in, so he knows when he's been a character in the stuff that they're doing.
This soap opera, this drip 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 drip. And I do want to actually address that, because before the debate, you reached out, and this is one of the reasons that Candace has said that you were our horse or whatever. Again, Andrew did this of his own accord. He's been on this since before I even knew he existed. He was debating people about this before I even knew who you were. But you did reach out before the debate, and you said, hey, I've got some questions. Do you have any evidence about some of this stuff? Now, some of the stuff we didn't even know about internally, because it was like on Charlie's phone, and Erica looked on the wrong apps. It was this text exchange, and you read it at the beginning in your opening comments. You have not disclosed it publicly, and I have told the team that it's yours to disclose it at the timing that you wish, and you've said you're going to disclose that on Friday. But that was something that I wasn't even fully aware of, the language that Charlie used, which was he was concerned about the left.
And he was very specific about it. Now, the thing that was interesting, it didn't shock me a bit, because when I went back and looked at all of Kirk's public tweets, and when he would do public speaking in interviews, if you're talking about Bill Maher, for instance, where he calls them the purple-haired Taliban, if you look at his tweets where he says that he's concerned that leftists are attempting to kill and murder him, that doesn't surprise me at all. Why? Because I received tons and tons and tons of death threats from leftists, and it's constant. Now, they've gotten smarter about coding it. They'll usually say things like, I hope you unalive yourself, or I hope you get what's coming to you. What's coming to you is coming soon. But it's all coded language for threats. Let's not kid ourselves. And so the interesting part here is, like, it didn't shock me a bit, because Kirk's entire pattern, when I went back and reviewed it, was he was really, really, really concerned a leftist was going to kill him. And then it looks, at least appears at the moment, based on all the evidence, that one did. That's exactly what happened, that his fears were completely justified.
Andrew, we have stories specifically about this. The only time I ever saw Charlie remove somebody, because sometimes security, somebody who's acting up, and we didn't even hear about it until after the fact, security will remove somebody or whatever from an event. The only time I ever saw Charlie say that person needs to go was when he personally felt unsafe around a trans person at one of the events. And he was like, I don't feel safe. That person needs to go.
And he's sensed this for years. Shortly after I started working with you guys, spring 23 was the Covenant shooting in Nashville. And Charlie said, like, this is going to be the first. There's going to be a lot of these. And I was skeptical. I was like,
I remember
shootings are rare.
You were
and
contrarian on that.
I was
day.
contrarian. I was like, shootings are rare. And it's, if they're taking feminizing hormones, that's going to make you less likely to do shooty type stuff. And I was totally wrong, because there started to be more of those. There was one, I remember him saying, like, a trans person might do it. This was not a text, otherwise I'd show it, but it was in person, because a few days before September 10th, there was one up in Canada, I believe, where, again, it was one of the, I think it was an MTF, and they went nuts and shot up their school or some sort of function like that.
And I think the family. Anyways, yeah, and so before we do these tours, we would put together these binders. The team would work on binders. Different people would get different topics, and it was for him to study, right? Talking points, stats, new surveys that came out. And for the fall semester, his express direction to the team was don't put trans stuff in the binder. And he wanted to go easy on that subject after the election. Didn't feel like he wanted to hit it. Didn't want to poke the bear. We're winning that one. And he was legitimately worried about that specific topic. So there's actually you mentioned the Bill Maher clip.
There's actually a major part of this that you guys may not actually know about, for that justifies Kirk's fear of this even more. And I don't know if you knew about this or not, but it did happen. Once upon a time on Twitch Politics and on YouTube, there was a lunatic named Keffels who was utilizing the T-mob to deplatform any creator who spoke out against T hormones and things like this towards children. They were referred to as the T-mob, right? They called them the trans mob for a reason. And that's exactly what they did. And they would deplatform, they would silence all opposition, and it was bad. Like, they didn't even want to say a word about it because they would just instantly mass report, you'd be deplatformed, that would be the end of you. So these people were beginning their approach for these kind of mass campaigns against right-wingers before it ever even turned into the violence that you saw. It started online with deplatforming and unpersoning. So there's actually a lot more to give that credit than you might even think.
No, and by the way, that's how we ran Charlie's YouTube, just so everybody's clear. We were never allowed to go into that topic because he did get demonetized. I believe the team can fact check me on it, but I believe it was over that topic. Different things for different platforms, like Facebook, it was climate change. YouTube, it was always the trans stuff. Anyway, so we were very, very careful about that specific topic. So just another piece of evidence behind what you're talking about here. Andrew, so an hour has gone by very, very quickly here, and we're going to sign off for our Real America's Voice family here in just about a minute and a half. But, I think to wrap this up, and then we're going to transition, we'll keep going, and you get to then ask us questions because that's what we agreed to, and we're an open book, so you can feel free to ask.
And if you would like, I can always, if you want to keep it within the time constraints, we can always come back next week and I can ask the questions that
I think let's just keep rolling.
You sure? What about the drip, Andrew? Don't you want to do the drip? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We could do the drip.
We could do the drip.
That's actually a fair point. By the way, the team confirms we were demonetized, and Charlie was demonetized and had his account blocked on YouTube because of trans. So
yeah. That doesn't
confirmed.
surprise me because you were dealing with the T-mob for a long time. One of the fact checkers I had there, Rob Knorr, very close friend of mine. He was the same gentleman who went out and assisted me with the debate prep for the
I got to meet Rob. Yeah,
very, very, very nice guy. And he was demonetized for several years, on and off, due to the fact that he was refusing to back down from the T Mafia and was making fun of them so much. So he dealt with that himself quite a bit. What we ended up having to do on YouTube was just take it off YouTube and go to alternative platforms if we even wanted to discuss it.
Yeah,
that's how powerful that lobby became until right-wingers began breaking it up.
We stopped streaming Charlie's show on YouTube. We would only edit out clips and then post them after the fact. That's how bad it was.
Because it was going to get banned.
We're going to keep going with Andrew Wilson on the stream. Real America's Voice, thank you for taking the hour. We appreciate it. We'll see you tomorrow.
They're moving to commercial here.
Over to
wording, phrasing.
Whoops on the wording. We're to the Crucible. You're going to drive, and I guess we're the guests here. So we are men of our word. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, one of the reasons that I agreed to do the interview is because my own audience has had many questions about this since I began discussing these lunatics online, essentially, and that's
Sure.
what I consider them to be. And I thought that maybe if they heard a lot of what I had heard, that they would kind of understand my thought process and how I got to some of these inductions. And so I'd like to start by going all the way back, and maybe you can tell us actually what the relationship was between Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk. What actually was it?
Yeah. I'd like to go first there, even
Yeah,
though
go
you
for
have
it.
far more to say, Andrew, because I can just speak from my perspective as someone who arrived late 22, moved out here in 23, that I have never met Candace Owens and don't know her. Maybe I saw her in person once at a distance. Maybe I shook her hand. I've never had a conversation with her to my knowledge. And I think that speaks to something because I was with Charlie for close to 3 years. And I feel like I met most of the people Charlie was super close with. I met donors. I met his family members. I met his team. I met a lot. And I don't know Candace. So I like to use that as a preface, but you have more that you can say about that.
Yeah, and Blake, you have that great video
Yep.
that everybody plays of you reacting to Candace. Your
Oh yeah, where I'm
kid.
kind of like raising my eyebrow.
Yeah,
a little.
fair to say, Blake was early on the being suspicious train. Yeah, if you go back far enough, I mean, that's why. I mean, I put out that tweet basically saying, you know, Candace, your central foundational lie is that you and Charlie were friends. You were not friends, right? Show me something from recent, you know, the end of Charlie's life, the last 12 months or whatever. And I think she and then I said 18 months, 24 months. I think she showed something at 22 months, and so I got community noted, right? Okay, whatever. What I can tell you is that I think Charlie and Candace were friends back in 2018, part of 2019. That did not end well at all, actually.
How come?
Could you give more details there? Even I would like
Yeah.
to hear that. Like, what caused her to depart, if we can say?
Well, I mean, there's two things really, and part of it is you got to give credit where it's due. She was a rising star. She was growing really fast. You know, Charlie famously sort of offered her a job. What did you? Sorry if I missed something that you said, Andrew. Oh,
No,
okay.
you're good.
Yeah, so she was, you know, Charlie offered her a job basically right on meeting her, kind of saw that she was somebody that could help Turning Point, help the movement, in his opinion. And then they you know, she explodes onto the scene. You know, Kanye had that tweet where it's like, I like the way Candace Owens thinks. And it was kind of like a rocket ship, right? And then they had, but she became more and more difficult to work with, more and more issues with the team.
What do you?
And then
when
she
you
had
say
that moment where
when you say difficult to work with, what do you mean?
I think, you know, she was very aware of her rising star power. And so she started exerting more demands on timing, on where she could be deployed, what schools.
So she was becoming like a prima donna.
You could use that
That's
word.
what I've heard. I've definitely heard complaints from people who have worked with her.
Yeah, and that continued on after when we started working with her later on. Just, you know, I think she canceled an event with us, and our event team still tells this story, you know, like the day before, and we had to scramble to get it replaced because she, you know, she ended up in like France with Kanye or something the next day. And so anyways, the point is that it was just an ongoing kind of growing frustration. And then she had that event where she basically said Hitler was great if he just would have stayed, you know, in Germany.
Stayed in Germany.
Stayed in
Yeah.
Germany, which, you know,
Now, to
there's a lot of problems
to
with.
be fair and charitable here, right? Just to be as unbiased as possible. I did go back and
Yeah.
review that clip, as that seemed like it was the turning point for Turning Point. Was that actual clip? It
Sure.
didn't. It seemed to me that she wasn't actually trying to make any sort of like apologetics for Hitler, but rather she was trying to make a comparison to nationalism and saying that as a nationalist, she thought he did a good job. And then, you know, she basically just kind of misspoke and buried herself with that particular lead. But obviously it became a massive PR nightmare for Turning Point, right? That's how that ended up playing out.
Well, I think it's one of those statements where you can defend it and then, you know, in isolation, and then events afterwards, I think, lend greater clarity to it.
Yeah, it was
'Cause
part of a whole.
Yeah,
And
like the defense you could make is, oh, she just meant, oh, he wanted Germany's economy to grow. He wanted to undo
Yeah.
Versailles. She didn't mean the weird,
Kill
you
all
know,
the
kill all the
Jews
Jews.
or whatever,
Except
yeah.
then 2023, 2024, she actually becomes obsessed with the Jews all the time.
Yeah, I would say it was part of a whole, though, to your point. Yeah, you could, if that was a one-off, you probably could have defended it. But then we had a bunch of chapters that were really up in arms about it. And then you had this, I think it was the Christchurch shooter in New Zealand that like said she was, this guy was inspired by Candace. It was like a whole bunch of stuff. And so it didn't leave on good terms. But Charlie, being a gentleman, wanted to make sure that the transition happened in a, I guess you would say, like a kind of a soft landing sort of way. Tyler Boyer helped her start Blexit and file the paperwork. I think the original paperwork was filed at Tyler's house at the time, is the story I've heard, but who knows the details. And provided her with some donor money and donor contacts, and there was some issues there as well. Anyways, the point is there was a lot of, I think, hurt feelings. It didn't end well, but Charlie's always a guy that is willing to sort of let bygones be bygones. He was always focused on the greater mission, the movement.
Coalition
It was not
builder,
a
right?
guy that, it's a coalition builder, and he wouldn't focus on internet feuds. He never got into that. One of the reasons that we were probably slow to respond to some of this stuff is because we were trying to emulate what Charlie would do, which was people would attack him all the time, and he would just kind of like be like, "Hey, we're going to rise above it. We're going to keep doing good work, and that's the way forward." And I mean, eventually, at some point, it becomes impossible to do that, right?
And
In this instance,
it's genuinely sad in that I think she and others were able to take advantage of Charlie's own goodness as a person, that if he has differences with someone, he's usually going to operate privately. He's not going to speak about it. I mean, we know plenty of other cases where Charlie had drama with donors, and he wouldn't even necessarily share it with other people in the organization, because he wasn't a guy who was just spewing out his problems, his beefs, his concerns, his feuds.
Well, that's
And
counter.
that was one reason he was a good bridge builder, because he
Right.
would repair things with people later.
yeah.
Well, these things would be essentially counterintuitive if you're trying to have this massive reach of coalition building for the purpose of winning elections. And nobody takes away from Charlie Kirk or Turning Point USA that they likely assisted a great deal in Trump's election, which means that this coalition building that they did actually worked quite well. So I don't think that there's anybody's disputing any of that. The main question just becomes this: one of the kind of landing pad for these people is they start with the assumption that Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk were besties. They were great buds. They were the besties of all besties. They were great friends, and they always were great friends. And she's just trying to find out what happened to her friend. But that narrative, as I learned when I was there, actually is not, in fact, true. And so that's what I'm asking you to speak to. Is is there any real truth to that narrative at all?
No, and especially at the end, I would say, okay, maybe 22 months was the cutoff. I don't know what the cutoff was exactly, but no, I said it online, and I'll say it again. Charlie was basically managing that relationship. He saw what she did to the Daily Wire. She saw that became a huge
spat where he originally sided with her.
Yeah, he
in
did.
that.
He did, because in our history with Daily Wire was mixed, right? We had differences of opinion politically. We weren't always sure, where that relationship sat. But Charlie, it's a great example though. Charlie was the one who invited Ben to speak at AmFest in 2024 and 2025. He personally invited him. And so he was willing to kind of say, hey, what's in the best interest of the movement? Do we have 80% agreement and 20% disagreement? Okay, cool. Let's do this together. And so, yeah, they were not in any way, shape, or form friends in any traditional sense. But I think what would happen was, for example, I would have to have the hard conversations with Candace. So that would fall to me or Justin on the team, saying, hey, you can't speak at our events because you've been like juiceburging too much. Sorry, and then you'd talk with George and all this stuff. And he would send her like a nice text about, hey, I see, attendance at Catholic churches is going up, right? So that was kind of basically the way the relationship worked. But she didn't come to his wedding. She didn't come to the memorial. I did actually invite her to the memorial, but she didn't come. I invited her and George. Not to speak, but to attend, right? And that was before everything got really crazy. But I will tell you, Charlie, this is another proof point. Charlie, she called at some point, I believe it was February 2024. Things were getting going bad with Daily Wire, and she needed her own PR. And Charlie said, Andrew, you need to do this and help Candace. And I was like, I don't know about that. I have some misgivings, some pretty serious misgivings. And he was like, he wanted me to keep her, close to help protect the organization, you know, and that was one of his strategies. And so, and I hate sharing this stuff because I like to keep Charlie's private stuff private, but like when you are constantly confronted with these allegations, at some point you're backed against the wall.
Yeah, and I remember the truth is it was a gradual process. So Charlie was taking Candace's side. That video you mentioned where I kind of have a funny look on my face. That's happening where Candace was on her way out of the wire and he was siding with her. And I was telling him, Charlie, I don't think Candace has gone beyond the pale yet, but I think eventually she will.
You were early on that.
I've seen this process play out. It tends to not go part way and then
I remember
stop.
Blake kept predicting like she's on a bad trajectory here, Charlie. Like this is not going to end well. And I love that about Charlie. Charlie was always sort of like hoping for a redemption arc, hoping that he could pull somebody back in and get them into the fold, and he always held out a little bit of hope in that way. So
you saw this where it's like stuff breaks down. So I think even in spring of 24, she was doing events with us.
I think that was her last one.
The standard where Charlie's west of the Mississippi, she's east of the Mississippi. That goes away because she's going too nuts. And the communication is becoming less. The appearances are becoming less. And he's not going to go out and say, Candace is terrible now, I'm going to dump on her.
That's
just
not
not the nature
style.
of what Charlie was doing.
He would never do that.
And
I don't know if we've answered your question, but I mean, there's a lot there.
I think you did.
The team. You could ask anybody on the team, by the way, like from the events team to the field team to senior people to lower people.
When I was there, I was curious, right? You know me, I can't help myself. I'm always curious.
I didn't
about
actually
this
see
kind
you
of
asking that, but I wasn't there the whole time. But I'm. It's fascinating that you did. So.
Yeah, I always, I'm always trying to dot my I's and cross my T's. I'm a curious person by nature, but I do want to ask this too. So moving forward, in September, right? These attacks didn't seem like they were all that prominent yet. She didn't seem like she was moving over to kind of a vicious attack of TPUSA until slightly later than September. So
October.
The question becomes like, what happened in that period? Did you have communication with her? Were you talking to her? Were you concerned about her safety? This type of thing. What was the interim there that caused her to move into, we have to destroy TPUSA? Like, what actually happened there?
Well, man, you're tempting me to share something I haven't shared before. But so I immediately was in touch with Candace. Again, reminding you and the audience, I was one of the people tasked with sort of, being her point of contact with the org for a number of years. And when everything happened initially, you're sort of, it feels like the whole slate is wiped clean. You have new beginnings. This terrible thing has just happened, and you're reaching out to people and talking to people. They're reaching out to you, and it's just an overwhelming sense of like, we're all living through this tragedy together. Bygones be bygones. Water under the bridge. Okay, it's been tense. We've had our differences, but we just lost Charlie, and I think you're operating under a place of hope that we're all in this together. And so I was very happy in the immediate aftermath to communicate with Candace and share what I knew and share what facts were coming in. And I was, really worried about her safety, especially that day of. There was rumors floating around that I was later told were disinformation, that they were maybe targeting her and Tucker and maybe even Megyn Kelly. And apparently that just turned out to be misinformation, presumably maybe Russian. I don't know. But people were picking stuff up, send it to me. I wanted to make sure she was aware of those potential threats. And then we just kept talking. And, what I think I think that we stopped communication in October because it just became extraordinarily clear that this was heading in a terrible direction and she was no longer operating in good faith. But I remember one conversation, it was probably like 5 or 6 days after. And I remember I had flown to DC. We had J.D. Vance hosted Charlie's show on that Monday after. So Charlie was killed on a Wednesday, and then J.D. hosted the show on the Monday. So I remember I flew back, landed in the airport, and I believe I was talking to Candace, and she said something that I've not publicly communicated yet, but basically it was that if the wrong people take over the organization, and she said this, I'll never forget it. She says, "I will burn down that organization. I swear to God."
And you mean Turning Point?
Turning Point. If the wrong people, and I just assumed because she was very obviously
There were
anti-Jewish.
rumors at this time, like it was
This is
chatter
5
online.
days, 6 days after, whatever it was. She said, "I'm going to burn down that organization. I swear to God." And I just thought she meant if the Jews take over or something
Ben
like
Shapiro.
this.
Let's just say the name.
Ben
People were
Shapiro,
throwing
yeah.
out because Ben Shapiro had appeared on the show.
And
Some
he-
people ran with like Ben Shapiro has now taken over Turning
Well, he
Point
hadn't
USA.
appeared. I don't know if he had appeared on that. I think he was actually going to show up the next day on the Tuesday because it went JD, the Daily Wire guys, Glenn Beck, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson that first week.
I don't think that
So-
you even know what you just said there and how much of a bombshell that is. Can you repeat that again? Did you just say
Yeah.
that Candace Owens told you that if the wrong people take over TPUSA, she's going to burn it to the ground?
Yeah, like 5 or 6 days after Charlie was killed.
And then what did you say?
And I
and how did
said,
she
I
reply?
told her because I knew that Charlie had told me multiple times, and multiple, I'll say 2, maybe 3 times I'd heard it. Then I was at Aspen when he
and I've
repeated it.
said it was a miasma. This would come up in conversation, and everyone would say
We all just knew if something happened to Charlie that Erica would take over, but we didn't think that hard about it because we just kind of assumed Charlie was going to be with us for the next 56 years. But at that point, I told her before it was public information, Erica, I think, is going to take over. And, she's very conservative. She's Christian. Like this is what Charlie wanted. The board was informed about this when Charlie was alive. Like this is what's going to happen. Like you don't have to go there. I remember because like a chill went down my spine. And I said, well, don't say that, Candace. Like Erica's going to take over. And you kind of heard her react like, oh, okay. Okay. Like it kind of
it
takes
takes on
guard.
a different. It takes on a different meaning over time. I think. That
Yeah.
In
And
the
it's something-
moment,
She's going
you
to
felt,
burn
oh,
it
it means she's
to the ground.
reassured.
She's going to burn it to the ground.
But now it gets back. A thing I've said is, I think the
You're
nature of
speculating,
this is
but-
a speculation on my part, and again, I don't know her. This is just kind of my read on her behavior, and I've been around a lot of people and in media and so on. I think Candace is narcissistic enough and kind of delusional enough. We mentioned we would do these campus tours where Charlie's west of the Mississippi, she's east of the Mississippi. I think Candace was able to tell her a story of, I was Charlie's equal. I was the other person who did campus events just like Charlie did. I am the natural successor or replacement to Charlie. And I think she managed at some point to convince herself that she would get a call and be asked to take over Turning Point USA. And when that didn't happen, she experienced it as a colossal ego injury. And
Well,
a lot of things flowed out of that.
To-
That's
again,
what I
to
personally
be fair,
suspect.
To be fair here, I'm going to try to keep the speculation to a minimum, as people are often always speculating about other people's motivations. They often get that incorrect. I'm not sure exactly what the
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah, what the motivations are, but I can tell
I
you
don't
that
know.
there's a
I don't know.
huge that like what you just said there is incredible. She said that early on that if people took over that she didn't like, she was going to burn it to the ground. That's an incredible statement.
And you think about how early it was.
Yeah,
That was
And that it was immediately on her mind by extension.
And then and so, I remember the first time she mentioned me on her show, and I experienced the wave of like comments and, searches. And I could actually see it because, immediately afterwards I took steps to protect my family's personal information online. So we had like a company that, helps with privacy and stuff like that. And I just actually got the year in review kind of like, report, and it shows this huge spike in early October. But I think the first time
Of, like people trying to get your
people
info?
trying to access private stuff and doing all these like weird searches on you or whatever. And so I remember, I don't know if it was late September or early October, but I texted her. I go, "Did you just bring me up on the show?" And she goes, "Yes, I did." I said, "Did you say good things or bad things?" And she says, "Good things. I told the truth." She's like, "You've always been so good to me."
Wait, Owen
And it
said
was
that
like-
about you?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like,
You've
and
always
that
told
was
me anything like that.
You've always been
so good
to
to
me.
and I was always really nice to her. And she, even some of the tweets that or texts, group chats, texts that she shared, you know, we're being supportive and we're being in good faith and we're proceeding on as though like we can work together and things can be harmonious in some way, shape, or form. And again, we didn't want her to turn on the org like she did to Daily Wire, so we were always had that in the back of our heads. But so I was always nice to her. I'm actually a nice guy, as you said. Like it's probably actually one of my flaws. But I was trying to proceed in that vein, especially after losing Charlie. You're hoping everything like blank slate. Like I said, we're moving forward together. Like the movement needs to coalesce. All of this in good faith, and then you know the rest is history now.
Well,
We
let's
saw what
move
happened.
backwards a little bit, if you guys don't mind. Shortly after Charlie Kirk's assassination, your first day back at the office, right? What is this like? What is the actual atmosphere like at Turning Point USA? The not just the founder and figurehead, but also close friends, and in at least one case, family member is now murdered. He's been assassinated. What is the atmosphere there like at this time?
Like horrible. Like
heavy
it's like that
question.
scene in Saving Private Ryan where like the bombs go off and just ringing. You know, it felt like you were walking through a cloud. You know, everybody crying, hugging,
A lot of that,
comforting each other.
and at the same time, the way there's so much activity because
the
everyone's
place
there
was
who's
buzzing.
normally not there.
Yeah.
There's hundreds of people outside.
Thousands, actually.
Thousands.
It became
Yes,
like kind of a I don't know, like a shrine outside, and people. It was like people were
People
making
leaving stuff,
pilgrimage,
which they can still do, by the way, if anyone is in
and
Phoenix.
people do
we
still
invite
come.
you to do
People
that.
do still come up and just pray, lay flowers, still to this day. But yeah, so there was just so many people around, and then like all these friends of the org throughout the years just wanted to come, and so there was just people that aren't normally here. They were here,
And there was a lot of distraction into activity because so many things needed to happen.
Yeah.
So Erica delivers a statement from the studio here. I believe was it Thursday night or Friday night? But it was very quickly.
Friday night was, so we came back. So here's what I say. So I flew from California to Salt Lake with or Orem, I guess, Provo, with my wife immediately. Then JD Vance takes all of us back down on Air Force to Phoenix, which was like he still has my so much appreciation and gratitude I extend to him for that gesture. And I think on Thursday I did Steve Bannon flew to Salt Lake, or you know, and he actually wanted me to do a show, and I remember I just sobbed like a baby. Like I still think about that. Like I'm not one to really show emotion in public, but that day I just couldn't help it, and we were reading this tribute to Charlie, and I kind of just lost it on air. Then JD flies us back down to Phoenix, and then on Friday we all the team got together and we were like, we really want to do the show and just remember Charlie, and that was just like a really heavy day. And I remember Friday night, Erica, that's where she gave her first speech, actually right behind where Blake is sitting. Right there is where we set up just a podium lectern, and she gave that speech that was it just felt like the whole world needed to hear from us somehow. That was just this like collective feeling.
Let's back up a little bit here too. Again, it is completely fair to say that this environment that you find yourself in, besides the fact that everybody, of course, is sad, depressed, everything else because Charlie's assassinated, it sounds like this was complete chaos as well. Just total chaos.
It was totally. It was so busy. It was quiet in like a heavy way, but we still had to keep doing stuff, which was extraordinarily
Think about everything that happens in the following week. We have guest hosts who are big names themselves. Each day we have some stuff that happens out of the White House on the Monday with Vice President Vance. So you have getting a team to D.C. to do stuff with the Vice President of the United States. You have super high-profile guest hosts Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You have the memorial, which is a full, like the most massive event
Yeah.
Turning Point has ever done.
So it's
and
just madness.
That's on a turnaround of 10
It
days.
was absolute madness. It still blows me away the way the team pulled together to pull off the memorial. Like
So is
that
it-
shouldn't be possible.
So is it fair to say then that you guys were leaning very heavily towards friends and influencers to help you guys get on track and
Yeah.
figure out where you were going and what you were doing?
Of course. Yeah.
And so it stands to reason one of these influencers perhaps was Owens, right? That makes sense for
Yeah.
why you would contact her, discuss
She
various
contacted
things.
me.
with-
I contacted her. It was both ways.
yeah, so that makes sense. So in a way, some of these influencers that you are contacting to kind of help you get through a very dark time in Turning Point's history, the darkest time in Turning Point's history, and then one of them used this to their advantage to later leak these various messages and this type of thing in order to utilize that against Turning Point. Is that a fair statement to say?
I think that's a fair statement to say.
Doesn't that seem diabolical? Like that, like that.
It's
I've
deeply
seen,
wounding.
yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
some horrible things, but it seems overtly diabolical to take advantage when it's the case that there's absolute chaos and a emotional turmoil in order to integrate yourself into that to later be used for the purposes of profiteering and to quote burn down this organization. So it's interesting. This is part of the reasons why I asked the pointed question. And forgive me, I'm not very emotional by nature. I just want to get to the actual facts. It does seem that some of these people took advantage of this because it was a dark time. And if you think that that's fair to say, were there other creators that came in to support you who you never thought in a million years would have?
Yeah, you would be one of them. I mean, I try and keep things private. Like I genuinely, there's a part of me that's so disgusted I have to discuss any of this stuff because my nature is to, use discretion and keep private conversations, phone calls private, right? And so I'll do that here. But yeah, there was absolutely a bunch of people that, from the wider movement, Turning Point had a lot of connections and still does, obviously, but with a lot of people, right? But not everybody. There were some people like yourself that we weren't connected with, or, you insert name here that we're not really close to, but a lot of those people came out of the woodwork and just reached out and wanted to help and have continued to do so, actually, which is one of the, people often ask Blake and I, like, how did you get through this? How do you get through it? Well, first of all, our faith in Jesus Christ. Our faith is so foundational, and that was something Charlie was. I mean, he said he wanted to be remembered for courage for his faith, and he surrounded himself with a bunch of people that are Christians and Catholics and devout people. Secondly, my marriage, my wife and I, like, our relationship has been closer than ever. My kids, my family. But thirdly, it was the larger community rallying around us and continues to, and despite the attacks. That's what's been actually pretty encouraging. There's a lot of people out there that are sane, that don't, maybe they haven't gotten into the fray, but they have our backs, or maybe they have gotten loud, but the people I wouldn't have expected. I will tell you,
doesn't it seem
one
to
person,
be, I mean, real quick, I'm sorry to cut in. Doesn't it seem
That's all right.
to be an unrealistic, this is one of the problems I had when I was going back to falsify my own claim, was realistic expectations. So, first of all, Kirk wasn't just a figurehead. My understanding is that Kirk was very, very invested in the daily runnings of TPUSA. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was really, really hands-on, certainly, but he also had it set up in such a way that, like, if he had to go travel, do these tours, that, like, the people he
People
put
could
in
hold down the
positions
fort.
of power, they know what they're doing.
I mean, Charlie was a supremely talented manager in the sense of being involved in everything, but not micromanaging everything because he recognized that was impossible.
I do
then
want to
isn't
address
it-
one thing with that.
So then isn't
Yeah.
it unrealistic, the expectation that while all this chaos is going on and emotional turmoil, as TPUSA is trying to find its legs again while all this is happening, isn't it an unrealistic expectation that everybody's going to say all of the proper things, they're going to do all the proper things, they're going to have the best foot forward with every public image event? Doesn't that seem unrealistic on its face?
To me, it is, but you're also looking at this with a in good faith, right? You're applying some amount of sympathy to us. What's been amazing, so like you talk about this first 2 weeks, you had people running all over the place. It was not even controlled chaos. It was just chaos, right? Because one of the things about Turning Point when Charlie was with us was, it's like I had the title of spokesman, but Charlie was the spokesman, really. You know what I mean? Charlie was the drum beat at the front that would, go do the interviews and things like that. So, now you have all this media attention. You have all these people that are coming to you because they want to help. They want to do something nice for you. So you want to also meet them where they're at and try and, fulfill the request. So you had that times like 100, 150 people just running around like crazy for the first couple of weeks. And it took us a little while to kind of like rein everything back in and get some like protocols in place, So it was complete chaos, I will say.
Yeah, I understand. Now, you had wanted to make a point just before.
Oh, yeah, because so much had been made, at least earlier stages, about this like Doge audit and stuff like this. Well, I just want people to understand, Charlie, we talk about him being hands-on. Charlie, I don't know the threshold, but it was like $1,000 or like $500 or something. If there was an expense going out the door that was over, and it was like around that, but like $500 to $1,000, he had to review it first. Charlie knew where all the money like of the org was going all the time. I mean, he was a stickler for it. So these accusations like he was somehow a dupe or he was naive about these
and this has gotten insane
him.
over time. There was an episode maybe a month ago or so where Candace ran with the idea that Tyler had like progressively replaced everyone at Turning Point to turn this evangelical org into a Mormon mafia. And every single person she named as part of this Mormon mafia had been at Turning Point longer than Candace had been. That, our camera guy who was Mormon took your headshot when you came here.
Yeah.
Candace.
So anyways, but the point is like Charlie just loved Doge. He was a big fan of Elon. He thought it was like a cool, like, internal messaging. Hey, it's just,
I think it was literally on par with your high school. Like the idea is like find ways to be more efficient here because
it was
like
just
Doge.
driving internal excellence, iteratively excelling and getting better. That's all that was. It wasn't some like untoward thing where he's trying to hunt down, people that are, I guess laundering the money or something. So it just many things like that have been misconstrued, portrayed wrongly, and just with like so little grace or understanding, or credit to Charlie for actually knowing how to run an organization.
So essentially, disgruntled former employee,
Basically
gets upset, utilizes.
Let's keep going. This is great.
Tragedy. There are a lot more questions that I do have. If you guys will humor me for just a few more
just keep
minutes.
going. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go. Why not?
All right. Well, let's fast forward now. We kind of went backwards a bit. We're going to fast forward to when these attacks really began to escalate, especially from the various people all over the internet. Many of these people who I've looked into have been at this for many years, attacking various organizations, attacking various content creators, anybody who essentially doesn't go along with their whatever it is that they believe. This month they're going to be ruthlessly attacked. You had mentioned earlier, before we started my end of the questioning, that TPUSA really didn't have any sort of online defense mechanism from this type of thing, nor was it expected, obviously. Could you dive into that a little bit more?
What do you mean, like an online defense mechanism? Sorry, just be a little bit more specific.
In other words, you said that Kirk stayed away from internet beefs. He stayed away from kind of the online drama sphere. He stayed away from that type of thing. So when these attacks escalated, were you just kind of caught by surprise that this was even going on, because it wasn't a thing that TPUSA traditionally had ever had to
we
deal
were
with?
definitely not geared, probably, I would say, to fight that type of war.
Certainly the unceasing nature of it, because Turning Point had been attacked before. Charlie had been in
Usually by the
scuffs
left,
before.
though.
By the left, or by more, you might say more moderate. Well, I don't even want to say more moderate factions to the right. We had the Groyper War way in the past, and those guys would go after Charlie. And sometimes you'd get, we'd been through a few rounds of people trying to say Charlie was anti-Semitic, and I think that usually had some sort of factional struggle to it.
Sure.
And so he'd been attacked before, but I think what was special about this one is Charlie had never been the subject of conspiracy theories before.
Yeah.
And
Which, by the way, as you're seeing with the Lindsay Clancy stuff, it's like there's no reasoning with some of this
Yeah,
stuff. And you're
and
just like
so-
blown
but-
away at I think you called it
Well,
the
but-
fallacy of the gaps, where
Yeah.
people just like fill in
Evidence,
the gap. Like,
it's-
that was
but-
it's
completely
the evidence of the
but what I
gaps
mean is,
fallacy,
we've
yeah.
never been faced. When we say we've never been faced with conspiracy theories, a few natures of that is, if someone calls Charlie an anti-Semite or says he's bad or say he's a racist or whatever, even if it's an unfair attack, it has a certain concreteness and substance to it that you can engage with once or twice, and it can't really just go forever and ever. It's like a one-off thing. You respond to it or you don't. It is a successful attack or it fails, whatever, move on. But what we never had was, when I say we never had a conspiracy theory, we never had one of these things that they truly can just decide to push endlessly.
Oh, it was like they'd come up with something new almost every day. If you're like, how the hell did you get like the evidence of the gaps fallacy is like when I heard you explain that fallacy, which is a new one I hadn't heard before, I was like, bingo, that's what it is. Like, because every day it was kind of like a new thread that would get pulled, and I'm like, how the hell would anybody even like, we're not smart enough to pull off whatever the hell they think we're doing here. Like,
Well, one of the
nobody would have
dangers-
predicted.
One of the major dangers of using that sort of fallacious thinking, because it's not just fallacious argumentation, it's a fallacious form of thinking. You just shouldn't think in patterns that way. It's because it's heads you win, and then or heads I win, tails you lose, right?
Yeah,
So the idea here
exactly.
is either you have to spend all of your time endlessly addressing those things, or you don't bother addressing them, and then your silence is an admittance, right? So
Right.
there's
Yeah.
actually that's set up in such a way to create a no-win situation for a person. If you address it, that's bad, and if you don't address it, that's bad. So ultimately, that's why the evidence of the gaps is a fallacious form of thinking. Now, it's self-destructive ultimately because people come to absurd conclusions. But while somebody's being victimized through that methodology or being attacked by that methodology, it's very hard to defend against it, because either you have to waste endless amounts of time trying to defend yourself from the attack, or it is the case that if you're silent about the attack because it has no merit, that then your silence is an admittance of said attack, right?
Well, it's totally right. And I would add a couple things here, too. When Charlie died, we lost our biggest megaphone, right? We lost Charlie having millions of followers to set the record straight on XYZ. So we lost a very practical, function right there. And, so there was that. Also, we were trying to keep up with this explosive growth of the org and all these kids that want to start chapters. We had and we were still doing the tour in the fall tour to pay tribute to Charlie, which went extraordinarily well, and all that was great. But it was like we had real stuff to do, and so you're faced with the do you, I'm kind of reminded of Michael Knowles while he turned down, doing your debate, moderating your debate. He was sort of saying like, I don't choose to engage this. Now you can disagree with that logic, but there was a part of us that were kind of going like, this is so absurd and it's so insulting that I choose not to sort of like even engage it, because like I don't owe you anything. I don't have to monkey dance when you tell me I owe you some piece of information here or there. And so there is that kind of thing. And then ultimately, obviously Blake has become more outspoken. I've become more outspoken. And I think the other thing that was interesting about this time is that people assumed that what Candace was saying about her relationship to Charlie and her proximity to the org was actually true. They were also assuming she was a conservative, and I think that has been both of which have been, I think, proven untrue. And she'll deny that, and she'll say that we were besties or whatever, but it wasn't true. Okay. And the point is, those lines have gotten clearer in the months since, and I think that's been helpful too. So people kind of understand where the two sides are at.
So just moving backwards very quickly, back to Charlie and Candace's relationship, was he pawning her off on other people? Is that what was going on, just to kind of maybe not get her to not freak out? What was going on with that? Can you be
I mean, it's a
specific
soft
about
landing.
it?
Yeah, trying to. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't want to be overly specific because there are friends involved and things like that. But it was a soft land. It's like, hey, you're not trying to like fire you and humiliate you. We're trying to do it graciously, and everybody can still be friends and all that stuff. So
Gotcha.
yeah, it was. But that's basically what happened in 2019, I guess.
The
early
typical "you're fired, here's the handshake on the way out, and good luck to you," right?
kind of, yeah,
Kind of.
And then that iterated right when Turning Point took over Blexit, at some point, and I think Charlie was glass half full. Charlie was always trying to do things that were useful for the movement, and Charlie was always like very bullish on outreach to minority urban communities, and thought that with Turning Point organizational might behind it, Blexit could turn into something really powerful, and but it ended up being the wrong bet in that direction for many reasons. But so Charlie was always looking to the future, always trying to build, and that's one of the things I love about him. But ultimately, in this instance, it was a massive backfire.
Gotcha. And then I'm not going to waste too much more of your guys' time. I hope we can do this again in the future. But I do have two quick questions that I want to cover before I end my end of the questions that you guys have been very gracious with. The first is what's on everybody's mind. My chat's asked about this a million times, the Crucible chat. What's in store for TPUSA? What's actually going to go on going forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got a lot.
Nothing has stopped from what we did while Charlie was with us, of course.
Yeah.
So we just had Chapter Leader Summit was had last month, and
that was twice as big as the 2024 Chapter Leader.
Massive,
more than twice as big. It was massive.
Massive.
And by the way,
thousands of people. Thousands of people. These are all young people. All people involved with chapters. All people who are really engaged with Charlie's message, really inspired by him. So that still is going. Young Women's Leadership Summit, that's going. We've got our first men's summit. So new events are being rolled out.
I like the
America
men's summit
Fest
idea.
I love that.
I love the men's summit
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, and I think it's very cool. They're keeping the list of speakers secret, which I think is a very canny marketing play. I don't even know who the speakers are, actually.
Yeah.
And then America Fest still happens. Like everything that Turning Point has done or did while Charlie was with us continues, to the extent that the outpouring of love and revival and support happened after the shooting. Turning Point's doing its best to harness that for the good of the country, for the good of the movement, for the good of the Christian faith, all of those things. So
we got AmFest coming up. There's going to be a lot of debates, by the way, because we'll debate data centers, flock cameras, foreign policy, all that stuff. So it's going to be huge. AmFest is going to be massive. And we've got the Pick Up the Mic tours going around all over college campuses. By the way, high school campuses have exploded almost 200% since. And those take a long time. People don't understand how long a high school campus takes to become an RSO, right? It took us like 3 years to get Charlie's high school at RSO status. And that didn't happen until I think after he died. So that we're over 3,500 official Club America chapters, over 1,500 college chapters. We have 1 million students involved now with Turning Point in one way, shape, or form or the other. We had 400,000 4,000 churches in our network. Now we have 12,000, part of TPUSA Faith. We've got over 1,200 employees across all the Turning Point organizations. Massive support from grassroots donors that are like small dollar donors. So everything's moving and chugging along. And, as I think, as you say, like stories of our demise have been wildly exaggerated, by people that want to seed that. Yeah, it's crazy. And I will just tell you, when you meet the kids, the students, man, these are like the best kids in America. I really genuinely believe that. They're smart, they're hardworking. Most of them are really serious Christians. And they love this country. They want to fight for this country. They want to bring people together. These are not the people that are like dooming and glooming, and they're not trying to rip people apart and tear people down.
They're great. I mean, I just loved. We had a chapter leader on who got accosted by this hag in Indiana who was blasting her on TikTok, and just the level of positivity she had about it. And it would take an army to make me feel bad. It was so great. I'm looking at other stuff. Staff is sending me other stuff that's going on. Turning Point Education is bigger, so they have a gap year program for students who maybe aren't sure what they want to do in college yet, or if they want to go to college. That has its second location. More people are signing up for that. We have the Great American Tailgate Tour. I don't even know what that is, actually. I should learn more about
Yeah,
that.
and we've got communities that are launching. So we had a bunch of these like alum that wanted to stay involved in their
we should hype that
communities.
up. Turning Point communities, because we would
Yeah.
get endless emails that say, I'm 38 years old. Can I go to Turning Point campus events?
Yeah.
And I'd say, so not all of them are closed, but it is a student organization. Well, now
Well, some of them
you
are
could
like
have
25 or
now
26.
you could have a Turning Point chapter that is just
Yeah. So
families in your neighborhood.
we've
that
got young
is
professionals,
military
families,
affiliated,
Rise,
first
Heroes.
responders,
Yeah.
all of that. And so all of those people can now have a Turning Point chapter effectively, which means more events, more ways of getting
By-
the message
by
out.
So
the
you're
way,
going to
none of this is-
continue. You're going to continue
Well, hold-
the mission of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, so this is the key here too. I want to make sure that's all on the C3 side, but that doesn't count all of the vision that Charlie had, like on actual chasing ballots. And so think about like Turning Point Action. We're light years ahead of where we were in 2024 as far as our ballot chase program. So that we call it Chase the Vote, where we hire actual full-time employees. And now we've launched it in 3 different states. We're in Arizona, Nevada, and New Hampshire. So we're building the red wall, which would make it very hard. Even if in 2028 the Democrats sweep the blue wall, they couldn't win a national race if we hold the South and we add New Hampshire, Nevada, and Arizona.
Good.
And the room
So
for growth here is massive. Like
we have field offices in all those states. We have thousands of employees already right now, and they're all trained up. They're mobilized. They're knocking on doors, sending text messages. That's happening right now.
Because that's
And so
needed,
that was
right?
Charlie's
We need,
vision for that.
We need the ground game. The ground game is the most important, and that was always where TPUSA came in. It's not just about influencers. That's only the minor part of that job. I always saw TPUSA.
I totally agree.
As
we
a
should cut
giant.
Turning Point Action for that.
Yeah,
to
that's
make sure
the-
we don't have anything bad said.
Yeah, but that's the. I mean, that's the mission that people support more than anything. Can I just ask a last question before I let you guys go? Can you give me your word and commitment to this chat who's watching and the many, many thousands who will be watching this later that you will commit to stopping the left? You'll do everything in your
Yes.
power to stop the left.
Blake, don't say it how you really said.
Well, I just think it's a bizarre question because, like, to the extent if people say like they're not answering every single bizarre theory and question we have, it's because our priority always is combating the left.
So here's our vision. We want young people to be able to get married, to have babies, to own a home, to experience the American dream in an affordable way and not have to go die in some foreign war, and to love their country, to believe in it. We want to restore the social compact. We have a vision for young people that will buy in and have skin in the game in America. That is like fundamentally the vision of Turning Point. And in order to do that, yes, you must defeat the left because the ideals will kill and destroy this civilization, not only America, but Western civilization. So yes, 1,000%. And when you asked that earlier question, were we really equipped to fight this kind of war? No, because we are, you hear about think tanks. No, we're a battle tank. That's what Charlie always used to say. That is designed to defeat the left.
And we're not a drama entity. Like we don't exist to just have endless drip revelations in whatever soap opera thing that has nothing to do with the next election, that has nothing to do with the actual lives of American young people or American families.
There was a couple rules. There was a couple rules that Charlie had. No black pilling. There's no black pilling allowed. Okay, so we got headwinds in 2026, maybe even in 2028. Whatever. The polls are one way or the other. We got a lot of tough races. No black pilling, and be a happy warrior. And so, listen, we're going to keep doing what we do as best as we can. And, we ask for people to not believe the lies, to believe in what Charlie built, and, have our back because we have this country's back.
We crushed the left, gentlemen. All right, you got to
we
crush
Own the
left.
libs.
You got to
I think-
crush the left. They're the most dangerous sycophantic
Charlie,
lunatics on
I'm now
planet Earth.
you've blasted back into my brain a line Charlie had in one of our telegrams where he just said like, I will never stop wanting to own the libs.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate your time and allowing me to ask these questions. I know that we're constrained a bit by time. It was very kind of you to take a little bit of extra time for this chat, and I hope both of you have a wonderful day.
Likewise, thank you for taking the time, letting us ask about your debate, and it was great. Honestly, we're open books, and I knew this was part of the deal, so happy to do it, and we'll do it again soon.
All right, sounds great. You have a wonderful day.
All right, take care. You too. Thanks, Andrew. And for our stream, we're signing off.
Well, there you have it, gentlemen. Bombshell after bombshell. Turns out the things were not so crystal clear. They weren't cut so clear, were they? There was a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. Anybody who was trying to run a real investigation, an actual investigation, would have gone and looked at the facts themselves. Instead, it was left up to people who value logic, people who value reason. We have to go and we have to make sure that the due diligence is being done so that people aren't crucified by the mob for things that they never even fucking did, by lunatics who have a clear agenda. And that agenda is now to side with Act Blue funded leftists and lunatics. So that's kind of too bad that that's the situation we find ourselves in. But fucking a simple mechanic from the Midwest should not be one of the few people left who will actually attempt to falsify their position by just actually asking the people accused what actually happened. These are wild times to be alive, ladies and gentlemen, wild times. There's a mass psychosis which has overtaken people. The questioners are not being questioned themselves. Logic is being abandoned, and so is reason. It's insane enough that just regular Joes seem to have a better grasp on how to deal with these things than this entire collection of wine mom lunatics who have decided to take it upon themselves to not only accuse people of wrongdoing, but then if anybody disagrees with them, use their mob power to deplatform them, to destroy their life, to dox them, to demand endless amounts of information that they can then twist and destroy them with. This is a very sick cult that we're dealing with. Very sick, very disturbed. And they have a clear agenda, which is power-based. You do not question us or we will fucking destroy you. And I don't know about you guys, but fuck them, like Steven Crowder said. Fuck these bastards. From all of us here at the Crucible to all of you out there in Crucible land, I'm going to leave this stream up. I hope you get some value out of it. And I hope all of you have a wonderful afternoon. I'm going to be doing another interview this evening with Paramount Tactical. He'd been reaching out to me for a couple of weeks, and I finally have some time. But I appreciate you guys tuning in this fine day. And I hope all of you have a wonderful afternoon.